Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today's episode is actually another installment of Wrist Watch Rambles and Rants, brought to you by the one and only Wrist Candy Watch Club. So I always try to be as transparent as I can when it comes to paid content. Guys, they basically sponsored the segment. I get to decide what's in the segment. All I do is give them a little plug, little shout out to their shop, because hey, you know, I'm appreciative of them supporting the channel. So with that said, this episode is going to be dedicated to the idea of the Bond NATO strap and comparing really some wonderful options that I've handpicked here, and as a little bit of product placement for Wrist Candy Watch Club, and also, of course, a bit of a shout out to one of the OGs of watch reviews within YouTube, of course, TGV from the Urban Gentry channel. This watch is the Milus Snowstar. If you watch the channel, I'm really pretty infatuated with this thing thus far. Big fan. I've had my eye on it for a very, very long time, but it's featured here on a non-Bond strap, but I think a really great other option if you are looking for something like that. I do like the color combinations on this Valour Nylon. Only 18 bucks. It's basically that TGV Collaboration from the Urban Gentry YouTube channel. It has polished hardware. It's available in 18, 20, and 22 millimeter widths, and it's 11.5 millimeters in length. I'm sorry, inches. That would be much. That'd be very, very short. So I'll definitely leave a link below. Boom, Wrist Candy Watch Club, check them out. Enough of that. So a little bit about this particular watch. This is the Milus Snowstar. I recently did a review. Definitely check the full review in the channel history. But what we're here for is to talk about the famous Bond NATO straps. Now, there's kind of two sides of that house. There's the original Connery Bond strap, which of course has the green, the red, and the black. And then there's also the modern Bond NATO strap, which is more related to Daniel Craig with the black and gray motif. Now, I do have a nice selection of different straps here from different manufacturers that I think all go really well. And of course, I think the Milus Snowstar, with its specs, being in that 904 stainless steel there, 39 millimeters, that nice 20 millimeter lug width, the beautiful 2892 top grade. I think this is a really great watch. It also has 100 meters of water resistance. So great adventure, kind of dressy, everyday outdoor watch. Something that I could definitely see James Bond wearing, and, probably more in the vein of what Ian Fleming first imagined. So with all that said, let's zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. All right, guys. Milus Snowstar. A little bit about this watch first before we dive too far in. It does have fully reflective hands, so they're a high polished rhodium plated diamond cut, very, very high precision. But some people in the full review were like, oh my god, it's barely legible. Guys, I'm recording this literally in a dark room with two light sources, one there and one there. Everything else is dark. So what that does, it actually helps negotiate the reflections off of the dial, so you can get a better idea when you're looking at it. But because of that, right, it's reflecting off of what? A black lens. So yeah, you're not going to, when you're looking at a watch, believe it or not, you're not going to be looking at it through a lens. You'll be actually just looking at it with your eyes. So you'll actually be able to see all the reflections, right? A little bit further back, you can see even reflecting off of a dark room. And I actually added another light in the back. It does add a little bit to the glare, but just so you guys don't go off thinking that this is just some unlit. Guys, come on. There's tons of watches that don't have lume that are just fully polished when it comes to the handset and the indices. Let's not just jump off a cliff over reflections getting caught because it's looking into a black lens. All right, let's be above that before we comment. So now let's get into the strap options. So we kind of have two sides of the house, right? We have kind of modern Bond, we have classic Bond, and then even here we have some subcategories in terms of kind of the more vintageized look here, with a little bit more of the faded, you know, kind of more of a monotone look, versus here, very high contrast, brand new, very vibrant and very, very nice. And then on the other side, you know, and for all these, I really tried to keep it within that idea of the more luxurious side, because let's face it, guys, if you want a NATO strap you're gonna be able to wear with a white tuxedo jacket, it's got to be a little bit dressy, right? So with the full polished hardware, it goes with the fully polished case here. But also I went for combinations that were more on the premium side, because honestly, you guys can buy the cheap options anytime without thought. But if you're going to drop, you know, 30-40 bucks on something, maybe even pay some extra when it comes to shipping, I figured I might as well show you guys those, have them side by side so you can get an idea of how they work. And then also one thing to note here as a standout, single pass versus all these with the more traditional kind of double. It's still single pass, but essentially there's another layer that will be underneath in between your wrist and the case back, essentially. So with that, there's that, right? So I gotta say, to start, is this a good looking strap? Oh yeah. Well, you know what, let's shed one glove here and get this on wrist, because I think it's a looker, right? So this can be the default kind of we'll set the barometer here on something that's a bit of a mix between, although of course that wasn't TGV's intentions when he designed this. Is actually meant to mimic the color combinations on the ribbon of, you know, one of his earlier ancestors. So, but I think it actually worked out really well as a nylon watch strap, because I think it looks pretty darn good. So of course, with gloves on and whatnot and reaching around a tripod, it's kicking my butt a little bit, guys. Let's be honest here. But in actuality, of course, you guys won't have gloves on and all the other doodads and whatnot in the way. But we'll check that out. Boom. We'll actually take these, put them a little bit over there. Ooh, that is a nice combination. I really do like that deep red. It's almost really more of a maroon color, and it does blend really well with the gray striping, and of course it all ties into the black. So very versatile from that standpoint. And I think looks really, really great. Of course, one of the nice things about this particular watch to highlight is it's really, really quite thin at under 10 millimeters. I want to say it is like 9.8 millimeters thick, and that's including, you know, a slightly domed bezel. Yeah, 9.8 millimeters thick, 47 millimeters lug to lug. Yeah, man. Big props to TGV and Wrist Candy Watch Club for putting out a looker of a strap. Very, very versatile, and only 18 bucks. So big shout out to the channel sponsors for that, or I should say segment sponsors. But let's move on to some of the other options here, guys. So these options were all chosen by me. You know, just like any one of these segments, I pretty much choose everything about, just to give you guys a little extra transparency. I know everyone loves a good conspiracy theory, but there's not one to be found here. Product placement, you know about it. Paid promotion, bam. All right, now for these other options, these are handpicked by me, and you know what, let's go ahead and start with this guy right here, which is the Watch Gecko, or Geckota Vintage Bond Swiss Style Premium NATO Strap, and this goes for $41.99. It has polished hardware. You can get it in 20 or 22 millimeter widths, and it has a full 13-inch length. So you're gonna, for those of you with larger wrists, you're gonna have a nice amount to tuck, and also you're gonna have some versatility because you do have that sliding keeper, which is great. But check out this hardware, guys. This is really great, and the nice thing is it has really nice big, you know, luxurious, you know, buttery hardware, while having a more of a thinner nylon, which I think is actually a pretty cool combination in terms of, you know, when you're looking for a strap, you don't necessarily always want the biggest, bulkiest material, but it is nice to have that more premium feeling hardware, of course. So we'll go ahead and run that through for those of you who maybe have never used the NATO strap. Wham bam. Thank you, ma'am. Check that out. Wow. This definitely brings out more of the vintage vibes. I mean, here compared to the blacks that you're seeing off of these straps, and also the black kind of charcoal nature of the dial, it's really pulling out almost like a midnight blue effect. Although that's just so you know, that's because it has the studio lights really blaring on there and then the color correction on the camera. But really, this is just a nice, maybe just a hair underneath like an anthracite. So it's black with just a touch of just kind of that faded appeal to it. This would be something, you know, more comparable to, hey, if this was like brand new and meant to feel new and vibrant, this is definitely meant to kind of play somewhere more on the vintage style. But the nice thing is you do have the beautiful hardware. So let's go ahead and get this piece on the wrist. So you can see a lot more tongue here, which is great. So you got a lot to work with when it comes to how you're gonna tuck and fold this bad boy. And because the this keeper is the one that slides, essentially what you do, you go in, bring it back, and the nice thing is you just have your other keeper here meet the material at the end. So nothing revolutionary in terms of the way it's going to sit on the wrist, but man, it looks good. I gotta say again, yeah, I think on the camera it's gonna probably appear a hint of blue, so take that into consideration. Maybe you have a watch with some blue highlights and you really kind of want to get that Bond theme. This might be the one for you guys. This thing just feels ultra premium, especially with the hardware being nicely milled, nicely beveled, and of course that will tie into kind of a more high-end watch. And this watch is exactly that. This Milus Snow Star is very, very nice. I just recently added it to my personal collection, guys. This is one that I've had my eye on for a long time. They do have a warm silver dial option, which looked really great also. But for me, I just kind of wanted to have a dedicated strap monster within the stable. And I think this really, really fits that space. And then you can see AR coated, something that you won't see from a Rolex. But you will see the steel choice. So very nice from that standpoint, guys. Man, really, really digging the hardware. And, you know, as I'm going, guys, definitely let me know what you think in the comments below. You know, what do you look for when you're thinking of just a general NATO strap, right? Or a nylon strap? Are you into the single pass? Do you like to have the traditional? I think the big benefit of the traditional is you get that symmetry by having that extra hardware obviously here. So you can see when it's on the wrist, you have the hardware on this side, hardware on that side. So that is a nice feature. And then now let's jump to something here a little bit more, you know, fresh and vibrant. The nice thing about this particular choice is if you have anything with gilt, I have to say, if you have a gilt dial, this ties in so darn good with it, because this green, when the light hits it, it really takes on kind of a golden effect. So I'll throw that out there in case some of you are thinking, hey, maybe I can put a strap like this on my Black Bay 58, right? And really go Bond with it, you know, Connery Bond anyway. So here we go. This has a little bit of a thicker, oh, well, you know what? I didn't even introduce this one. How rude of me, guys. Mora Straps. This is their black, green, and red striped NATO-style nylon watch strap. $32, but it's typically on sale for 16 bucks at half price. So $16 is pretty impressive for the build quality you're going to be receiving on this bad boy. I gotta say, really, really quite handsome. And here you can see a lot more vibrant. You have the deeper, darker black, also the much brighter red, a pure red, and then that really piercing green that catches the light, and the reflections almost give you kind of a gold effect, which I really, really like, and I think ties in, although it's very vibrant and fresh looking, it also ties into kind of the vintage theme when you think about those warmer golden colors. So the Mora strap, it's polished or brushed hardware. Of course, I went for the polished here. You can get it in 20 or 22 millimeter widths. And then it is also full 13-inch length. And what that means, guys, is again, you have, you know, for me being a 7¼ inch wrist, it gives me more tongue to work with. And then of course I can also, same thing, you get the sliding keeper, essentially run that through, run it back, fold it back. Here it's a pretty nice balance of the bigger, chunkier hardware, and then also the matching, you know, thicker, heavier duty nylon to match. And why, some of you are probably thinking, why would you ever want thicker nylon? You know, it's probably just less comfortable. Well, one of the things you get with the thicker nylon is the tighter weave. Look at the weave on this. There's no daylight coming through there. That's where you hear the term seatbelt strap, right? When you look at a seatbelt, that nylon is so tightly woven, has that really high tensile strength, and just amazing durability from that standpoint, right? When you go to something like this, more affordable, you kind of have that tubular nylon, which is also nice, but this, you know, although it's not quite as soft or pliable, at least on the first few wears, as it wears in, just like your seatbelt, right? You get into a new car, the seatbelt nylon feels probably a little bit more stiff and harsh, but as you start wearing it in, you don't even realize. But I gotta say, this one I would realize and notice on wrist. Look at that. And also, this doesn't have a spring bar. This is actually a fixed keeper, which is nice. So it's one less point of failure on the strap, which is kind of the whole point of having a NATO strap to a certain extent, is that if one of your spring bar fails, essentially you still have a closed loop, and then the watch is still hanging on by the other spring bar. So here we go with a more vibrant, you know, really fun, bright, kind of more of that summer vibe, you know, with the original style Bond strap. But as we take this off here, what we're going to do is move into something a little bit more contemporary, a little bit newer. We're talking the blue-eyed Bond himself, Daniel Craig, and, you know, the Omega style NATO strap, which is a very impressive strap, but it's also a very expensive strap. So with that, PhenomeNATO came through for you guys. This is a really nice strap. Also 13 inches full length, or you can get the short length. So you get two options here. You can also get it in an 11.4. This is the Bond HD NATO strap at 40 bucks. HD just meaning that it kind of has the more heavy duty nylon here. As you can see, this is like the cream of the crop. Again, it's more subjective, and I wanted to show you guys the thicker one. Even though it might not necessarily be my choice, I did want to grab the one that just felt the most premium, lasts the longest, right? If you're going to be paying 40 bucks and waiting a couple of weeks for this thing to ship from overseas, you got to really enjoy it and feel like it's going to last, right? And this thing does. Again, a nice feature here. Also, the closed, you know, there's no spring bar here. It's actually a solid piece, so one less point of failure. Again, really, really nice hardware, very highly polished. And then the more traditional layout. And then, of course, you also get this nice little tag here. So let's see how modern Bond wears on here. Okay. It's a little bit stiffer, right? But it's something that would break in over time, and also, of course, give you more durability long term. So there is a trade-off. It's not, you know, a perfect world. Of course, the softer stuff is typically gonna break down sooner, but it also will break in sooner, right? So let me give it a quick wipe here to get some of the smudges negotiated, and let's get this on wrist now. You get a very, very premium feel with the PhenomeNATO. Honestly, guys, this thing feels very, very plush, and you can even see by the way that it's almost wanting to hold its form a little bit more. It's a little bit stiffer. I don't know if people in modern times, if you guys use starch when you're ironing things. I know in the Marine Corps I had to learn how to starch while I was ironing my uniforms, but I don't know if that's the most popular thing today. You know, I'm kind of on the older side, so although my arms look very young because I have not much hair on them because I'm Filipino and ethnic background there. But man, check that out, guys. 7¼ inch wrist, wears really, really well. A very luxurious feel again, which is nice. It really ties into that premium vibe. And then again, because it is a thin watch profile in general, that's going to fit really, really nicely. So very similar to the way the other ones were wearing from that standpoint, also on the thicker side. I'd say maybe even a little bit thicker and stiffer than the Mora. So it's been kind of progressively getting a little bit more robust as we go. But the hardware has been, I'd say, you know, kind of up and down, where the Mora has very similar hardware, but then maybe just a slightly more robust buckle. Here we get a more stylish buckle, which I prefer. And then here you get even more robust hardware, but with a thinner strap. And then this buckle, gorgeous. Look at that. Even this guy here. But with that, the way they were able to get this piece milled is because it does have a spring bar. So then there's a trade-off there, right? So overall security, more secure with this or the Mora. Now, last on the table, guys, crown and buckle. These are nice. I've been wearing these. If you watch my Instagram, if you follow it, you should. If you're not, but what I do is I really enjoy these. There's a couple different combinations, colors, patterns, whatnot. They're out there, but it's really just kind of a hip strap. It's really in a vein of kind of what you'll see from like Tudor, from their OEM straps. It's nice and thin, as you can see. Let me just, before I put it on here, let's take a look at it. Crown and buckle Chevron. This is the James pattern, $32. But it's, you know, shipping is very, very fast. It's has the polished, brushed, or PVD black options, and the PVD black costs an extra $3 for the hardware. It's available in 20 and 22 millimeter widths, and it's about 10 inches max length, which works for me. And one thing you have to understand is that it is adjustable, but essentially the longer you make it, the closer these keepers will be together. And the shorter you make it, the more it's going to space out apart. So if you're expecting something like this much distance, you're going to end up making your strap very short. So for those of you with, you know, 6.5 inch wrist, somewhere in that area, that probably is going to be awesome for you because you're going to have a bit of the look there. I think it looks a little bit more balanced when you do have the keeper spread out. But for me, with my slightly, you know, on the larger side of normal wrist, I'm, you know, I do need to have it kind of extended out so that everything looks good still. Boom. Check that out, guys. Nice and sleek. Again, now if you have a thicker watch, this is something that you might want to consider because it's only a single pass. It has that premium look, although not quite as tight as your typical seatbelt. There's actually some really interesting patterning that happens, which does add a pop of texture, especially in this more kind of monochromatic color scheme there. It finds a way to pop by having kind of those different weave patterns. And then also you do have the really, really well done hardware. I have to say the hardware design on here feels very, very precise and premium, and maybe even the most, I should say, the most refined out of the group. I won't say it's the most premium feeling because there's some big chunky, you know, beveled, polished, pieces in the group, but this one, man, I'm digging that. I feel like this is kind of where this, for me anyway, where the strap should live. But let me know what you guys think. Are you feeling more traditional layout, with the thicker, more robust nylon? Are you feeling, something that goes back a little bit more to the classic Bond colors, or maybe something that feels a little bit vintageized? Or if you want to support the channel sponsors, you can get something on the way more affordable side that actually has a very different look and isn't necessarily, I know for me, right, that's one of the reasons why I really like this watch. It's not a Rolex what's the word I'm looking for? Homage. It's an alternative. Hey, these are more homages, right, to the James Bond strap. This is more of an alternative, but it still kind of captures a similar essence. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What was your preference? What do you look for? What are your thoughts? Hey, was the dial and handset legible enough for you in this video? Yeah, go ahead, let me know. Rant away, guys. I will do my best to respond. Thanks.